and welcome everybody. Welcome to the No Name Music Cast. My name's Tim, and this is
Joy.
And before we get into our topic of the week, which is my choosing this week, we're going to do a tip of the week, because we always like to do a tip of the week. And I have two tips of the week for you. Tip of the day, tip of the week.
I say Tim's got two.
I say tip of the day, but it's like because it's of the day that we're doing it, but we post our podcast every week. So maybe this should be an official title change of tip of the week. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, my first tip, and it's just a statement, be kind. That's all I'm saying with regards to that. And secondly, my tip of the week is, I may have mentioned this before, but I'm attempting to watch every episode of Mythbusters, and I'm getting near the end. I'm 30-odd episodes to the end, and it is kind of rough. It's got to the point where it's...
It got worse towards the end.
Oh, it's terrible. But my tip is... stick with it.
See it out through the end.
See it out to the end. Don't bail on it. Just if you've got your Discovery Plus subscription that you got free from Verizon, and then you hope you was going to watch all the episodes in 6 months before you had to start paying for it, and 6 months later you're still paying for it because you can't plow through these episodes because there's like 300 of them. Stick with it. And at the end of it, you'll feel some kind of accomplishment, though you will probably be disappointed because it got rubbish about 4 seasons in.
Okay, so we need to have this conversation. I want everybody to hear this out. So not related to any of our tip of the day, just about things becoming rubbish as you watch them. So there's this show. It's called Dope Sick. And Tim and me have also talked about, what is her name from what's the one with the lady with the one you didn't want to watch because you thought it'd be dramatized. What is her name, Tim?
Oh, the one about Elizabeth Holmes and Theranos.
Yes. So we were having this conversation. I read this book. It's called Dope Sick. And we live in Southwest Virginia and Appalachia. And there's been a big push about the opiate disorder and things like that in our area. There's a book. It was called Dope Sick based off the opiates. And I was very dedicated to this book, right, Tim? Like, I love the book. I thought it was great. There was literal doctors in it that I had nothing about, and I was all for it. And then Hulu got a hold of this show. Mm-hmm. And when Hulu got a hold of this show, I watched one episode and I was so upset because what they did was, one, they over dramatized what should have been dramatized. There's a lot of heartbreak and a lot of things that go into this opiate addiction that we don't need extra freaking dramatics, right, Tim? Like, we don't need it. Mm-hmm. We don't need it. But then it was like it was very focused on Appalachian people. And there was an LGBTQ thing that made us look bad. Like, I don't need to go into the details, but I was not a fan. They took what should have been a simple kind of thing and made it into the dramatics. And it's kind of like what Tim was saying about the show he's watching is, towards the end, why does it always get so dramatic? And he said he didn't even want to watch the Elizabeth Holmes thing because he was worried it was going to be overly dramatic. And I feel like that's what happened with Mythbusters. At least I'm wrong, but that's what I thought. I think it got more dramatic.
Well, what happened with Mythbusters is that they upped the budget and they upped the spectacle. And at the beginning of it, they had...
I guess the spectacle is a better way of saying it.
Yeah, because at the beginning of it, it was science experiments, and it wasn't so much about the personalities, it was about selling the story of the myth that they were busting. But what happened is it got very popular, and it just became spectacles of mostly explosions, to be fair.
I think that's a better way of saying what I mean with the dramatics. It just became over the top.
Yeah, and that's what happened. And it just... And it's like, this week, we're going to bust the myth. If we put C4 in a car, will it explode? Next on Mythbusters. And it's just like, where was the thing like 5 seasons ago when you was talking about barometric pressure and exciting things that kids could learn about?
Obviously, if I put C4 in this car, it's probably going to explode.
Exactly.
Just a theory.
Exactly.
All right. So I took a turn for that. But that's what I was getting at, is I struggle with that too. It's hard with TV shows you really like when they jump the shark, right? They just become overly dramatic. Mm-hmm. It's very sad that Dope Sick was overly dramatic from the beginning. We are not sponsored by any of these TV shows, Tim. What is your topic?
Well, before I get into the topic, I'm going to do a CD of the week. So okay. I've been doing a CD review the last few episodes, and as we all know, CDs are my preferred format to listen to music. And I heard that Spotify went down yesterday for a number of hours, and a lot of people were freaking out about that. And I was sitting back with my CDs and my MP3 collection, and I was like, did it? I don't know. I have no idea.
Tim's prepared for World War III. Continue.
Okay, so this CD I'm going to review this week or speak about is Brian May's Another World. Now, this was his second solo album. Back to the Light was his first. Another World was his second album. And this one it probably wasn't as popular as his first one. There was only one single that came off it, which was On My Way Up, which was the only single that was released on this album. It was actually
I am a little bit familiar with.
Yeah. It was used on a TV program. I think this album is stronger than his first album. He's got some great songs on it. Business is a great song. China Bell's a great song. Cyborg is great. And then you've got a track here, The Governor, which has Jeff Beck playing on it as well. So why do you feel like this is under like sold versus the other one? Well, I feel that Back to the Light got a lot of press because it was his first solo album, and it also had the single of Driven by You on it. This came out 4 or 5 years later, and I think some of that luster had started to go. He did tour this, and I saw this tour that was supporting this album at the Albert Hall in 1998. And that was actually a pretty good gig. But shortly, he toured this and then it kind of faded off and then he lost interest in being a solo artist. But he is going to reissue this in April. And a big deluxe box set is coming out. It's being remastered, etc., etc. And I've actually already pre-ordered the signed box set because I'm a geeky fan. But I would say, check this out. If you... It's probably on YouTube if you want to find it on there, but certainly all the streaming services will have it from April. So this is my CD of the week, Brian May's Another World.
Wonderful. I was just curious why you thought it was different, so that makes sense.
There we go. Okay, so we're going to get into this week's topic. As I said, it's my turn. And I've sort of taken a bit of a cue from what Joy's topic was a number of weeks ago. So she did a thing where it was like random words and then you had to think of songs. Now, I've sort of extrapolated that a little bit. We had some feedback from our listeners that they enjoyed that. So what I've decided to do, I've got 8 songs and Joy has got 8 songs. So what we're going to do is that we're going to mention a song to each other, and then it's our job to tell either something about that song to each other or a story.
Okay. I kind of wondered, I was like, I feel like this is a play, but I was also really wondering, I was like, so what Tim told me was find 8 songs that you feel like I may know, but they're not very obvious. And so I spent a lot more time on these 8 songs than I probably should have because I overthought it, but I'm very excited because I'll be curious to see what you say.
Okay, so the story can either be completely unrelated to music. It could be maybe the first time you heard it. It could be it reminds you of a person you know or somewhere you worked or something you did.
Or they're wearing traffic cones on their head.
Exactly, so something along those lines. So okay. I'm going to start it off first with Joy. So Joy, you get to give the first response to this one. So again, I went through and I pulled some songs that I thought that you would have heard of, were not terribly obvious ones. So I'm going for the first one, and it's Dire Straits' Money for Nothing. What memories does that conjure up?
I have very specific memories about this one. So I love this song. Let's start there. But there was a person I lived with as a roommate previous years, right? And he was learning the guitar. And for some reason, this was his muse. This was a song he thought he was going to, he loved Dire Straits, right? Mm-hmm. Like absolutely adored Dire Straits, thought it was the greatest thing ever. So when I lived with him, I had to hear this song on repeat, but it was like the bad guitar version of it in the sense that like he knew, you know, when you're learning a song, Tim, and I'm guilty of it too with the ukulele, you kind of know the chords and the songs that the chords you know really well go really well. Then you get that one chord that's like, and then you keep going. I had to hear this. So this was a person who lived with me, and he lived in the basement, and I lived upstairs of this apartment complex. I had to hear this song on repeat nonstop for going on 6 months of Bliss. And as a musician, I couldn't say anything because I wanted him to learn this, but I was like, I swear to God, if you don't freaking learn this song, it's not even that complicated. I'm going to go down and take that guitar from you and teach you what you're doing. My God, that song has very distinct properties for me because I distinctly remember this person, and I will not call him out because he may actually listen to the podcast. He's someone who's a good friend of mine. He's a good musician, and he may listen to the podcast. Tyler, if you're listening, I'm sorry.
You wasn't going to name it, but you just did.
Who's Tyler? I don't know what you're talking about, Tim.
Who could that be?
No, Tyler's fun. He's a cool guy. But I distinctly remember for at least 6 months of my life, I had to hear this song by guitar. But he finally got it, and it sounded great in the end. So I guess he put the work in, Tim. That's all that matters.
Fantastic. And in fact, for the guitar geeks in the audience who think the sound of Money for Nothing is unobtainable, let me explain to you how to do it right now. This is a No Name Music Arts
Tyler,
exclusive.
if you're listening, here you go.
Right, what you need is a Gibson style guitar. You put it on the bridge pickup. You bind the tone knob all the way off. You plug your guitar into a tube screamer.
Nerdiest thing I've ever heard in my entire life.
Yeah. You plug the guitar into a tube screamer style pedal. You plug the guitar into a Marshall style amp. And then on your mixing board, you boost the mids ever so slightly. And then you triple track it. And then that is the Money for Nothing opening riff tone. I was trying to record it. I didn't know how to do it. I found a YouTube video explaining all that stuff. And then when I put it in the computer and played it back, I was like, wow. That's how it's done.
No, it makes sense why I spent 6 months working on it, Tim. Get it now. I get it. All right, Tim, tell me about Bad Mama Jamma. What makes you come to mind when you get that?
That was a song that I remember from, I suppose it's 70s, isn't it?
Yeah. It was 70s.
Yeah, it's one of those songs I sort of remember being around when I was younger. It was on the radio. We used to listen to the Capital Radio when I was younger, and it was like something you'd hear on the radio quite often. And it's got that kind of like funky kind of groove type thing going on with it. And I don't know, it's one of those songs that maybe would take me back to the late 70s. It's not like Angel Eyes, that song that I was about with Roxy Music song, but it's like a capsule. And I'm sure when I was on the Isle of Wight listening to Casey and the Sunshine Band, I'm sure that would have been on the DJ's rotation there. So
back when I was in high school, whatever the European equivalent is, like 15 years old, secondary school, I guess, we used to have this one teacher who would do music trivia every day, and there were 2 songs she played that no one else got, Tim, and it was She's a Bad Mama Jamma, and then it was White Wedding. And I remember distinctly I said She's a Bad Mama Jamma, and everybody was like, what is she talking? Oh, I have another funny story about that, but everybody's like, what is she talking about? And I was like, you guys live much different home lives than I did. And then, oh God, it's playing in the background. She was also played White Wedding, and nobody got it. And I remember her going, oh my God, do you like, it was like one of those moments I can't say. She was like, hell yes. Like couldn't say because she was my teacher. But I knew what White Wedding was. And she was like, cool. You pass. I pass. But the other one was, I remember there was a few times where we would do that. And there was this one girl in the class, Tim, and I'm going to give her a props. Her name is Hannah. She was actually really good at her music trivia. Mm-hmm. But there was these really obscure songs that she was quicker than I was because I was shy. This is that I wasn't as popular as she was. So I didn't want to speak up as much. And I remember, though, we were in another class, and there was we were doing like a Jeopardy, and you got extra points on your final if you got this right. And this was like, we were taking college classes in high school. And it was this thing where he gave the thing, and it was More Than Words Extreme. Mm-hmm. Or maybe it was Mr. Big. I don't remember. One of those bands. And I remember saying it, and everybody in my high school was like, who is she talking about? And then I got like half the class, like 20 extra points on the final. I was like, thank you. I'll be here all week. Anyway, Tim, that's what I think of when She's a Bad Mama Jamma. Okay. All right, Tim, what is my song from you?
Yeah, so the next song I've got for you, so I've got some that are little less obvious, but a couple that I thought, that you will obviously know. So okay. I'm going to go with this one, and it's a classic, but it's the Weather Girls, It's Raining Men.
Okay, so of course, of all people, I would know the Weather Girls. Here's my first thing here. Second of all, my favorite part about the Weather Girls story is the women who are singing it didn't always get credit for the song, so that makes it even better. But I do have distinct memories of this song because I'm one of those people who, when you bring me around and maybe there's alcohol flowing and I was 21 years old, I tend to put the 70s music on. Mm-hmm. I was a disco girl at heart. I was a disco girl at heart. Thank you, Mother. By the way, my father has also, I need to tell everybody this. We're gonna pause for a minute, Tim. It was so I saw my parents this weekend and they need to put a caveat into something I've said in a recent episode. When my dad hit me in the head with a board, it was not a 2x4. Oh. I may have remembered it as a 2x4, but it was not. All right. Fast forward to what we're saying. My mother made me listen to disco a lot. I'm a big disco girl. So for me, It's Raining Men has always been like if I'm pre-gaming or I'm going out to a club or whatever, it's always been in my soundtrack. So for me, it's just a go-to. Really. My favorite part, though, is the fact that like the women in it are not your stereotypical female, like basically skinny, I'd say sexy singers that are very, voluptuous women. They didn't always get their credit, but their voices are freaking fire.
Yeah, and you know what? I think it's from a time back, early 80s, late 70s, that kind of time, where there were a lot of vocal groups, if you like, who didn't fit the quote unquote mold of attractive women, attractive men, that kind of thing. And in fact, I had that same thought. I was watching a video of Michael McDonald. I forget. I think it was from What a Fool Believes or some song like that. And there was a promo video for it. And that's a great song, and he's an amazing singer. But I thought to myself, do you know what? These days, that's never going to happen because that guy isn't 22 years old. He's not a model, good-looking guy. And then people don't want to put a poster of him on the wall, so they're never going to release that kind of music. It's really sad.
Exactly. And it's really sad because their voices are fantastic. The story is great. It's just a great all-around song. I don't know anyone who's ever said, God, I hate that they played It's Raining Men.
And do you know an interesting fact about It's Raining Men? It's co-written by Paul Schaefer, who was David Letterman's musical director.
I didn't know that, but that's cool.
Yeah, he's not the complete writer of it, but he co-wrote it with somebody else. But it's like two dudes wrote that song.
And isn't the girl who sings on it also, like, there's a bunch of early 90s, like, kind of pop hits she does background vocals for, like, if you do research on her. But the sad part is I feel like she's always been one of those who's kind of been held in the background. But that's neither here nor there. But yes, great song. Always makes me in college pre-gaming because I always put on the 70s disco. I'm a big It's Raining Men. I'm a big Donna Summer. Like, that kind of thing is my go-to, Tim. It's my bread and butter, so you picked a good song.
There we go. Okay, so Joy, I'm handing it over to you. I'm hoping third time will be the charm with this, that you will found something that I know. No, so see, when I was saying not pick the obvious, I was thinking of, Joy, don't pick Bohemian Rhapsody, pick Dragon Attack.
Thought you would know those. I really did, Tim. I thought you would know those songs. Okay. You know Sunshine, Superman, Donovan.
Yes, I do.
Okay, good. That's my next song. God. I really didn't think I was going to throw it out for that one. I really know those other two songs really well. Anyway, what makes you think when you think of Donovan? Continue.
Well, I think of Sunshine Superman, it obviously makes me think of Donovan because that's the guy who wrote it.
Yeah.
But the song of his that I always like the best, well, there's two. There's Hurdy-Gurdy Man, which is probably my favorite Donovan song. But Mellow Yellow is the track that I knew long before I knew that Donovan was the singer.
I like Season of the Witch, too.
Yeah, that's a good song. But I think for me, Hurdy-Gurdy Man is the one I really like, and Mellow Yellow is the one. Now, this might sound ridiculous, but the first line of Mellow Yellow is that I'm so mad about Saffron and Saffron's mad about me. Now, I've known that line and I've sung that line, and it was not that long ago, 15 years ago, maybe 16 years ago. It wasn't that long ago when I worked out that when he's saying the name Saffron in thinking it's a girl or a partner or something like that, that means yellow.
It means yellow. That was one of those moments too. It was like, wait a second.
Yeah, and I'm maybe somebody who misses the point sometimes with lyrics, because I listen to lots and lots of music. I listen to music all day at work. I listen to albums continually. It's on at home. We have it on in the bedroom before we go to bed. We have everything. It's music, music, music.
Besides Let It Whip, apparently.
Yeah, apart from that song. But for me, often the lyrics take a while to sink in because I often am focusing on the music rather than the lyrics. So it's one of those things I'd heard 1,000 times. And then it was just like I heard it one time and I went, oh, yeah, that's what he means.
Yeah. Yep. Saffron means yellow. Because saffron's like a flower, right? Or like a weed or something that's yellow.
Yeah, because you get saffron rice. I think it is like a flower or something like that.
Something about that is a yellow dye type situation. But anyway, okay. Well, I'm glad I found a song that Tim knew. Not that I'd ever come up with a song that Tim didn't know. And I'm still convinced you know the songs. You just didn't know them by name. I'm convinced you do know.
It's very possible.
All right, Tim, what's your song for me?
Okay, so this one is Johnny Cash, Folsom Prison Blues.
So there was this guy I went to high school with. And hear me out. I grew up in Southwest Virginia, everybody. And, you know, Johnny Cash is like a staple in this area. There's this one guy I went to high school with, though, that was convinced he was the next Johnny Cash. Great guitarist, great singer. And he put on this stage show that was very Johnny Cash-ish. He had people who played with him. He even got someone who was so when you grew up in the area so in Galax, there is this thing, it's called the Fiddlers Convention. It's the world's largest fiddlers convention in the entire world. So like you have a lot of people who play like hardcore fiddle or hardcore bass or, you know, not harp. What is the thing about the stand-up, like, Tim, what's the word I'm looking for?
What, like a T-chest bass?
Yeah, that kind of thing. So those kind of people, harp, that's literally not related at all. Don't know where I got that from.
Well, harp is harmonica. Like the familiar name for a harmonica is a harp.
Yeah. So anyway, what I was getting at, though, is so you have a lot of people in this area who are big on that kind of thing. And there was a guy I went to high school with. Tim, I was in love with this dude. I thought for sure he was going to be the guy I married. Mm-hmm. If you're listening to this, I don't even remember what your name was, friend. Back in the day, I was in love with this guy. Thought for sure I was going to be his muse. He was like 5 years older than me. Don't know why I thought this, but I thought he was going to be my Johnny Cash muse. And he developed, like, he got a bunch of people from Southwest Virginia. They had this cool band. He sang, and he did like a really good, because, you know, there's a lot of acts that do like a Johnny Cash kind of thing, right, Tim? Mm-hmm. Like, how many female singers have you seen with a male singer do Jackson? Like, we're going to Jackson. Like, that's a common thing in like modern society. He did a really good job of it. He ended up going to the Marines, I'm pretty sure, after all this was said and done. But I was convinced me and this boy, we were going to be lovers forever. Guess what didn't happen? He doesn't even know my name. He was 5 years older than me. I don't know why I was attracted to him. For some reason, though, Johnny Cash and this guy. I was like, this is my lover. I'm dead set for this guy. He doesn't even know who I am, Tim. So that's what I think of when I think of Folsom Prison Blues. Also, when I think of all Johnny Cash songs as a whole, I don't even know what happened to his. I don't even, to this day, Tim, I can't tell you what his name was. I don't remember.
I think maybe after this episode wraps, you should do a deep dive Facebook research session and find this guy.
I know he was in the military and he went to. He's on my Facebook. What was his name? Doesn't matter. I'll find him after. He was in the military, was in the Marines, he grew from all of this. But I remember he developed this band and performed multiple times on multiple weekends at like 16, 17 years old and was playing this kind of Johnny Cash outlaw kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And 14-year-old Joy was like, I'm married to you for now. Never said more than 3 words to me in my entire life. What a story.
Joy, it was never meant to be. You and Johnny Cash Jr. was never meant to be a thing.
I never even got to sing Jackson with anybody. Like, I could totally do a Jackson. Like, you know my voice, Tim. I could do a Jackson thing, but I've never got to do it with anybody. If anyone's listening and would like to perform Jackson with me, now's your chance.
There we are.
Try me insane, Tim, because I really don't remember what his name was. All right, Tim, here's your song. Let me give you one that Tim knows. All right, I Think I Love You, the Partridge Family.
So The Partridge Family, I remember that being the TV show being on, and it was, yeah, like, again, it's like sort of 70s type thing, and that would be something that would be on probably on ITV or Thames Television or something like that. I remember the Partridge Family, but the most recent memory I have for that song and the Partridge Family itself was I recently bought a wholesale box of CDs. Now, I sometimes do this, and I think it's like $30 and you get 100 or 150, and they ship them out to you media mail, and you get this huge box, and it's completely random. Now, most of the time when I do this, you end up with like 2 that you like and lots of empty boxes that you can use for other things. But this recent box had maybe 20 or so, which I actually decided to keep, and the rest which I gave back to the Goodwill or threw out if they were in really bad conditions. But one of them was like the complete hits or the complete something of the Partridge Family. And it's actually a really good compilation album. I'm not really one for compilation albums. I like the actual proper works of an artist.
Yeah.
But I was surprised to find it in there. And I've listened to some of the tracks on that, and that is actually some pretty good stuff. I mean, you wouldn't think it would be, but I don't know. There's some good tracks in there.
I mean, I like the Partridge Family, and I think I love you. But I mean, it's one of those most iconic songs. I don't know anyone who's never heard that song.
Sure.
Ever.
And in fact, when I was listening through it, I mean, I thought that was a great track, and I said I was surprised. And then, in fact, the issue of the CD was a recent one. It was maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and they go for $15 on eBay or what have you.
I mean, I feel like the Partridge Family is one of those things I forget about, to be honest. Like, it's like they exist and I know they exist. But then when I hear them, I'm like, yeah, that's pretty quality. And what's interesting about this song, I think I Love You, and maybe Tim, as a musician who's spent a little bit more time in the recent years thinking about like the actual music, and there's something very interesting. There's almost like a very dark tone to when it's like, I think I love you. There's like a chord progression in it that makes it kind of sound a little dark in places. Mm-hmm. That's really cool.
You know what it's like? It's like what a lot of people will liken the Partridge Family to the Osmonds. It's a very similar kind of idea. And like with the Osmonds, they were really wanting to do hard rock. And, like Crazy Horses is a hard rock song, which was really what they wanted to do. But, of course, they were doing stuff that, the record company and TV and what have you expected them to do. So maybe the Partridge Family were moving in that kind of darker direction, but they were just hinting it because they were within the confines of their producer and record contract and all that kind of stuff.
Makes sense. There's just a lot of dark chord progressions in that specific song that I can think of off the top of my head. All right, Tim, what is your song for me?
Okay, so I'm going to go with this one. This is a cover, but this is the iconic cover that you would know. And This is Joe Cocker's With a Little Help from My Friends.
Which is amazing. So I tend to prefer the Joe Cocker's version over all the different versions, they exist. It's one of those songs that I always equate to, and this is probably just my own brain. Have you ever had those moments in your childhood or your teenage where you just feel like you've done something with your friends and it bonds you forever, and there's nothing you can do to change that? Mm-hmm. That's what I equate this song to. And the reason I think that is, I just get by with a little help from my friends. So there was this girl's house that was the party house. I'm just going to tell you the truth. When I was younger, she lives in the middle of Southwest Virginia. It doesn't matter. We always went there. Her mother actually was not a bad mother. She took care of us. Nobody was doing drugs or alcohol. It's just a house we chose to hang out at. Right, Tim? Mm-hmm. Like, I never even had my first sip of alcohol till I was 21 because I was so sheltered as a kid. But anyway. Look at me now. Anyway, so what I'm getting at though, Tim, is I remember this distinct story of we brought the law, Tim, but we weren't legitimate. There's about 10 of us. We all went out. It was the middle of the dark night. And if you live in Southwest Virginia on a back road, Tim could tell you it's very dark. There's no street lights. This is backwoods Southwest Virginia. So we're all walking. And I remember walking and walking and walking and walking. Well, we come up on this house and there was a pond, and everybody in the group thought it was a good idea to get in the pond. Why this was a good idea, Tim, I don't know. We were young. Mm-hmm. So everybody was getting in the pond, and as soon as we went to get in the pond, the guy at the house flipped his light on and saw all of us, right? And screamed at us he's going to call the cops. Oh. So we all jumped out of the pond. We all ran back. And I distinctly remember this story because my twin sister fell because Morrison family luck. And she skinned her knee really bad. There were literal pieces of gravel in Brandy's knee. And I was carrying her going, we don't have time to worry about it. The cops are coming.
Oh, goodness.
And I was like, we got back. We picked gravel out of Brandy's knee. And the only thing they had at the house was rubbing alcohol. Oh. So that's what we put in her knee and bandaged it up. Of course, she screamed at the top of her lungs, multiple rocks in her knee. But those are the moments that I think about when I think if I get by with a little help from my friends, because those are the moments that everybody thinks of as a teenager. I think, you know what I'm talking about, Tim? We all did it. We knew what we were doing. We all ran, but it's they sediment in your brain. And we all were like, oh, we got to go. We got to go. We're caring for, I don't know. That's what I think of when I think of that song.
Fantastic. I remember it because we played it at VW Woodstock. I think it was 2004 with Ian Husbands and Frequency. And we learnt it for that particular gig. It was a VW Beatle Festival. So when I think of that song, I think of the performance we did at VW Woodstock. And in fact, our version of it was immortalized on their official DVD of the event. So that was kind of cool too.
Well, yours is completely different than mine. Mine was about Brady getting rocks in her knee. I don't know. I feel like that song just summarizing what everybody feels like with their really good friends that have helped them in those moments. Sure. So is that what I think of? I don't know. Absolutely.
All right. What have you got for me?
What a Fool Believes, the Doobie Brothers.
So this is I love this song. This is an absolutely fantastic song. And I mentioned Michael McDonald earlier, but yeah. So there's a couple of memories of this. One, that I have a video. This will never ever be seen because I will never be allowed to show it. But my wife has a video of a fake beard that she got from somewhere that goes with a beanie hat and a fake beard. And then she has a video of herself singing this, wearing this fake beard. And it is absolutely hilarious.
That's adorable.
Secondly,
pretty adorable.
There is another podcast I listen to called Band Geek. And I don't think the guy who runs it actually posts new podcast episodes anymore. But he is the guitarist for Blue Oyster Cult. It's a guy called Richie Castellano. But I think he releases videos on the internet. And his videos that he does are incredibly high quality. And he did a cover of Bohemian Rhapsody. He did a Spinal Tap thing for Halloween. And he's done a bunch of different things. And then he also did a cover of Hold On, which is, again, it's almost accurate to the original, but they made a funny video that goes with it. But they covered on there What a Fool Believes. And as per the other things that he's recorded, the quality is first class. He's matched the track completely because he's an audio engineer. He's a fantastic guitar player, singer, songwriter. So he
must be nice.
Yeah, he has the skills and the technology to do that stuff.
Makes sense.
But what he did was made an incredibly funny video. He lives in Staten Island, New York. And he recorded it in a McDonald's close to him. That him and his friend are both dressed up as Michael McDonald with fake beards and the whole thing.
I just always hear Michael McDonald's voice. I hit the table. You guys hear that? That's me, Joy. Don't edit out, Tim. That's just Joy being excited about Michael McDonald. But anyway, I always feel like when I hear about Michael McDonald, I can't not hear his voice, Tim. I like that sound, man.
Yeah,
it's such a good sound.
It's fantastic.
Whatever Tim just did is how Michael McDonald sounds at all times. I banged my table in effort to make that a point, but yes, that's what I think of when I think of Michael McDonald. I mean, I love it. His music's great. It's not to insult him. He just has a very distinct sound.
He does, and I'm going to post this video in the Facebook group because it is utterly hilarious. But you know what's funny? I was listening to Michael McDonald today. He did a couple of Motown covers albums.
I know what you're talking about because I've seen them.
Yeah,
I've never listened to them, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and I was listening to one today, and he was covering Motown covers, but in his Michael McDonald voice, like he's doing Stevie Wonder. He goes, "I was born to love you," and it's the best thing ever.
Tim's Michael McDonald voice will go down in infamy. Joy bangs the table, and Tim sounds like Michael McDonald. Sums up the podcast. Oh, Lord. I feel like I gave you that song. Tim. All right. Now that I've laughed so thoroughly, what is your song for me, Tim?
Okay. So this one is from 1991, and this is Pearl Jam's Jeremy.
Oh, that was dark, Tim.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to have a dark tale that goes with it.
I know, but it's a dark song, man. I mean, it's one of those songs that I feel like no one knows what it means.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, Pumped Up Kicks, we talked about that one not too long ago. I mean, it's literally about a guy. But the other thing is I will give Pearl Jam props on this. I'm not a Pearl Jam fan by any stretch. They're not one of my top bands. They're not someone I go out of my way to see. But that song has been used so many different times because it's speaking about what's happening and like what a person may or may not be feeling is the way I feel about it, Tim. So while it is dark, I do think it's valid.
Mm-hmm. And I think
that needs to be said.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think a lot of casual rock listeners wouldn't necessarily know what the song is about.
No. I mean, we don't have to get into it, but it's a guy, Jeremy, he went into school one day and shut up the school. We don't need to talk about it.
Sure.
But I think that when it comes to art for me, I feel like sometimes people get upset when people make art like that or talk about things. But you know what? It's happening in art. It's a reflection of who we are and what's happening in society, right?
Mm-hmm.
So someone needs to talk about it. Someone needs to say about it. Someone needs to, and what Pearl Jam did in this song and what they did so well, it's expressing those thoughts and those feelings that even people who did shoot up the school have had every once in a while when you feel outcasted or no one's taking you seriously. I mean, I grew up as an outcast in Southwest Virginia and I never shut up at school, but what they did in the song, Tim, is they brought those thoughts and feelings to if you take the time to listen to it, they did it beautifully. Mm-hmm. Is what I'm getting at. It's a beautiful song. And I love Jeremy as someone who's an advocate for advocate for just paying attention to what you're hearing and listening to it, make sure you understand what's going on. But I'm not a big Pearl Jam fan. I never have been, but that is one of my top Pearl Jam songs because I think they did it beautifully. And if you're going to do a song like that, that's the way you need to do it.
Sure. I mean, I'm not a big Pearl Jam fan at all. Ian from Radio Freak Jam is a massive Pearl Jam fan.
He was talking about that one night. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was around the time, I was playing with Ian and Frequency and stuff, and he'd often talk about Pearl Jam. And I sort of dived into the Pearl Jam world, on his recommendation. And, I discovered Pearl Jam's 10 album in particular. Mm-hmm. And you've got Black on there, which is another song we used to play.
Which is a great song. Yeah.
And the whole of that album, a Porch, Even Flow, it's all of 10 is fantastic. I have gone off to some of their other albums. And musically, they're good, but I don't think they really ever reached the kind of height they had with 10, unfortunately. I mean, like, Versus is good, and, there's some good stuff, but I think
the few singles they had, Tim, I think were beautifully done. So I might understand why Ian really likes them.
Sure, absolutely. And, sometimes, as we've said before, a musician or an artist will just hit you and you love it and you don't have to justify it. It's what it's important to you. So somebody might be going around saying, do you know what? Boney M is the best band I've ever heard and it really speaks to me. And do you know what?
Milli Vanilli.
Yeah, and do you know what? If you love Boney M and you're a Boney M super fan, you enjoy it.
That's Joy. Joy's convinced that. Oh, I asked him one night, y'all don't understand the weird stuff Tim gets from me. One night I asked him, if you were being killed on the electric chair, what song do you want to play? And he was like, what? I was like, so let's say they pay-per-viewed your killing. What song? And I was convinced that I wanted Rasputin by Boney M to play. Sam was like, Joy, go to bed. It's 3 a.m. I don't have time to think about this. But I'm convinced that if I were ever electrocuted and it were put on pay-per-view, I want it to be Boney M's Rasputin and the background. Not that anyone wondered, but that's what I thought. It's kind of like, so what it was is I was watching, like when someone's electrocuted, Tim, you get your last meal or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking, well, what is my last song? And I said, if I had to pick one, it's Rasputin and Boney M, which I know Boney M lip synced and they're not a real bit. I know all the details, but anyway.
I think I'd probably, at this juncture, I think I'd probably go with the Snowman's Hokey Cokey that we discussed on an episode a few episodes ago. But there you go. The
other one I would look at is, oh God, it's like She Comes the Hot Stepper, Murder, and the Liquor Cakes. Do you know some Hot Stepper, Tim?
Yeah.
That would be the one. I don't even know. I feel like it's like Snow or something, whatever. The band who sings Hot Stepper, that's the other one. It's like the humor in me could like just die. Like I'm literally being electrocuted. Here comes the Hot Stepper. I'd have to make a joke out of it. All right, Tim, is it my song or your song? I don't remember.
Joy, it's your turn to pick me a song.
Okay. I had a few. Let me think about this. Okay. The Shoop Shoop song by Cher.
Yeah, so I remember this. So this song was from the film Mermaid or Mermaids, I think it was, which was a film that Cher starred in. It was one of the very few films that I have seen, and I remember it. And I remember Cher having a stellar performance in it. So I know it from that. Also, back when I was in Moroccan Soul, which was the band I was in with Linda Jagger and John Jagger and Dion and Al the Bass, early 2000s, that kind of time, early to mid 2000s when that band was really going. Okay. I used to run the disco. And that's where I honed my DJ Caesar on the Wheels of Steel act. Because we used to get really good gigs. Linda used to book some absolutely fantastic places. We used to do weddings, we used to do parties and things like that. And they would expect a cheesy disco in the middle. And I really honed that act with that band. And really, as we've discussed before, if you're doing that, you need about 20, 30 songs and play them vaguely in the right order and it's fine.
Yes.
And the Shoop Shoop song was one of my standard disco floor-filling songs. So he goes, and the minute you play that, and everyone's like, yeah! And they're having a great time on the dance floor. And when I hear that song now, as well as that film, more than that, it takes me back to those gigs we used to play. We used to, I said it was weddings and all that kind of stuff. And then one time we drove up to Blackpool and did a gig, and it was like, it was good times, good people, fantastic musicianship, and me running the disco. And the other thing about the disco is this is before, I want to say MP3s were mainstream. I did have an iPod at some point during my disco years when I was doing it. Yeah. But all my songs were burned onto CDs, and I had a twin DJ CD deck, and then you could cue one up, and then you'd hit a button, then one would stop and the next one would start, and you could cue it in your headphones and stuff. I had the whole setup.
And I mean, that song specifically, when it comes to Cher, is much more disco than other Cher songs.
Sure, but my main memory of that time and that setup is that though it was CDs, some CD players, if you knock them, they will skip.
Yeah.
Like once you get in your car, don't do that because they have like a shock memory, so it doesn't do it. But some decks, if you whack them, they will jump. So you
just had those old school ones that you're walking around with.
Yeah, so you imagine like most of these stages you play, like if you play like a big fancy wedding, they will build a tent and then they will put like some kind of staging thing up, and that's where your gear is. So what would happen is you would have a full dance floor, possibly dancing to the Shoop Shoop song, possibly dancing to It's Raining Men or something like that. And then John Jagger, the singer guitar player in the band, who was kind of, how can I put it? He's kind of like heavy-handed, I suppose. Yeah. So like he would like jump on the stage to tune his guitar, and I say, John, be careful when you walk past the CD equipment. And he, all right, mate, and he'd just jump on it, and then the thing would skip, and then there'd be like a second of silence. Now, a second is not that long, but a second is very long when you have a full dance floor and the music stops.
You know, that's 100%. I'd be like, you just hear like cheers going on repeat. Isn't it? So that's what it sounds like. I mean, I get it. And you know, everybody's looking at you like as a DJ, and you're just like, it'll come back. It's all fine.
It's fine. Just let it catch up. Give it 2 seconds, and you're going to be back to your boogie.
I love that though. I mean, I'm a Cher lover, so I appreciate any Cher things all times.
Yeah,
we don't deserve her.
Exactly.
All right, so what's your song?
Okay, so this one is slightly different.
Okay.
This is from our friend John Williams.
Okay.
And this is the main intro music to Star Wars. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be a memory of Star Wars or anything to do with Star Wars, but when you hear that, where does your brain go?
Family Guy. So there's this Family Guy episode where they rip off Star Wars. I mean, that's all I think of. So I am in the camp of Andy. And the fact that I am not a Star Wars Free Jam fans. I'm not a Star Wars person. Don't come for me, internet. It's just not my thing. It's not that I don't like it. It's just not my interest. And I feel like it's one of those things that people feel like you should be interested in. Do you know what I mean, Tim? Like, it's like Star Wars.
Yeah, I get the same thing where people spool off these films to me and quotes from them and say, and then they say, oh, you've never seen that? And I was like, no. Oh, you should see that. That's iconic. You should see that. And I'm like, I'm not interested.
So that's how I feel about Star Wars. But I always think of the Family Guy episode. So, but the other thing I think of is just classic, that Star Wars intro. So the Family Guy episode did it, but it's always like the words going across the screen. You know what I'm talking about, Tim, as like the reels being, that's what I think of. That's legit what I think of. I just think of that reel. But I also, I have watched Star Wars. And one thing that I will say is my nephew, I grew up with a nephew who is basically, so my older sister had him when she was a teenager. So he was more of like a little brother to me because the age difference wasn't that different. So, because there's 7 years between my older sister, she wouldn't care if I said this. Like, she doesn't care. Juan's 18 years old in the military now. It's way past. But anyway, so my nephew Juan, he was obsessed with Star Wars as a little kid. And he used to play Star Wars Lego nonstop on the computer. Nonstop. My favorite thing was the cantina, because you had the cantina band. Mm-hmm. And I just seem to remember Juan screaming at me going, hey, Joy, come in here. And I was literally helping him wash dishes in the little cantina. And I just remember Juan was obsessed with Star Wars Legos. And like the little things he had to do were just so minute. And it always cracks me up, Tim, with video games, and I'm guilty of it too. I've seen Charlie do it. It's all wanted. Why is it washing dishes in a video game is fine, but we don't want to wash dishes in real life?
Because nobody wants to wash dishes. That's why. But
like, if it's a game and we're being timed, don't we have to do it? I don't know.
Because you're just moving the controller. It's not like you're getting your hands wet and cutting your fingers with knives and things.
Well, to me, I probably am cutting my fingers with knives. Tim, you have to know, I got an injury the other day. So I have like missing skin all over my knee. I ran in the car and Charlie goes, oh no, run back into the house and get the keys or the wallet or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. So I barrel out of his little Prius because I'm in the passenger seat. And when I do, my knee goes straight across. So the Prius is like a golf cart, mind you. I do not drive the Prius. Charles's Prius is like a golf cart. With gas prices right now, I'm not mad about it. But at the moment, I went out. Charlie was like, run back inside. Get this. And I ran back inside. And what I did, what is it like on the passenger side? So you put things in. The thing you open.
The glove box.
Glove compartment.
Yeah.
That's normally it. So my knee took that off. like hit it really hard as I was running out of the car because I was trying to hurry. Took the entire skin off the top of my knee.
Oh, goodness.
It hurt so bad for like 3 weeks. That's my most recent injury. I don't know what that has to do with Star Wars. Don't even know where I went with that. Don't know where that came from.
Well, I would like to controversially give my list of Star Wars films in order. Best to worst. Okay. Here we go. Star Wars. The Star Wars Holiday Special. The Empire Strikes Back. Rogue One. The Return of the Jedi. The Force Awakens. There are no other Star Wars films after that. That will be very controversial. That's controversial choices and controversial words, but there we are.
Don't comfort him, Internet. Joy has no clue if it's controversial, but he says it's controversial, so it seems controversial. All right, I'm going to give Tim a song. It is, let's see, I've got like 4 left. You Make My Dreams Come True, Hall & Oates.
Oh, I love Hall & Oates. I was listening to Hall & Oates' H2O today. And again, so Hall & Oates has a memory for me that when I was running the disco for the band I was in prior to the one now, Hall & Oates featured on that playlist. I didn't actively run that disco. I just put some songs on an MP3 player, but Man Eater and stuff like that was on that playlist. But yeah. I think one thing that Hall & Oates reminds me of, and this might be a very bizarre memory outside of the fact I love Hall & Oates, is that when I first moved here, there was a time when you could go into Goodwill's and you could get good quality records for like 50 cents, like really good titles, not just like the junk that you get now. You could go through and pick out really good quality albums. Okay. And I picked out, we hadn't been living in Christiansburg for very long, but I picked out 2 albums. Both of them were Hall & Oates albums. One was Abandoned Luncheonette, and one was like Best of Rock and Soul Volume 1, which has that track on it. And I think I still have the Best of Rock and Soul Volume 1. I think I still have that in my collection. And I don't know, when I hear that song, it reminds me of when I first moved to this area. And the fact that you could buy cheap records for 50 cents. But mostly that it reminds me of moving to this area and, getting set up. And we just moved into the apartment that we lived in at the time. And I don't know, it just reminds me of that.
Well, I was actually, so I saw you earlier when I said my dad gave the, let me make sure everybody knows I did hit my daughter in the head with the 2x4. Dad, I made sure that happened. We were also discussing Hall & Oates this week with my grandparents, my parents. Because so what it was on Sunday, I went to eat dinner with my parents, and so they listened to podcasts, and they're like, hey, Joy, could you just clarify a few things? But anyway, so we were discussing Daryl Hall and my theory that he is the actual villain. In real life. And Mom was like, my mother was also talking about, she really likes the show he did, the Hall, what was it, Daryl's House or something like that?
Yeah.
She was like, I really liked it. I said, well, it seems like it was kind of a way for him to pat his own back. And Mom was like, what does it matter? The music was good.
Yeah, well, the music was good. And you think from Daryl Hall's perspective, I mean, I would do the same. I mean, like, he's got that studio set up. It's at his place, and everyone comes to him.
No, 110%. And she was just kind of like, Joy, think about it. I was like, that's true. And I'm going to say something really wrong, but I'm a musician. Tim's a musician. There's a little bit of narcissist in all of it.
Sure. I mean, if you want to, it's one thing if you sit at home and you play guitar and you become a virtuoso and no one ever knows. That's one thing. And some people do that, and that's fine. But for a lot of us, what we want to do is learn to play and then show people we can do that.
And like for me, even like basically learning the basics of the ukulele, how many videos have I posted to him? They've gotten so many likes and listens or whatever, and I basically know the basics. So that means that has to be some form of like, patting your own back, right? There's some, and so my mom was like, Joy, take it perspective. And I was like, that's true. If I were Daryl Hall, I'd probably do the same.
Sure. I mean, it takes somewhat a different kind of person to stand on a stage and effectively show off, which is what you're doing.
And to be fair, like if you can, why not flaunt what you got?
Sure. I mean, I love it. I love to play. I love hanging out with the guys. I like doing the gigs. But, there's an element of that you are a show-off and you stand on a stage with a light on you and play stuff and hope people look at you. And that is it.
My favorite part about watching Tim play, though, if no one has watched Tim play, we'll have to post a video. Tim has never been someone who moves or is very everybody look at me in life. But when you put Tim with a guitar, he changes. I've never saw anyone move more in 5 minutes than Tim with a guitar on a stage. He does not stay still in the best way possible. Tim cracks me up every time I watch you play because you move so much.
Yeah, I just feel
the music.
I feel the rock. The rock flows rock flows through me.
It's so, no, I love it. It's so I'm not judging him. I'm saying if you've never seen it, Tim takes he's Tim is one of those people who's, I would say you're an introvert. You're a little bit extroverted, but you're not over the top extroverted, but you put a guitar in front of his body and he becomes a whole different person. It's very funny to watch. Also, I feel do you take your glasses off because you're going to lose your glasses when you play?
Well, I take my glasses off because I find that when I sweat, they slip down my face and it's annoying. So
that makes sense.
And plus, I've had incidents before at pub gigs where I've played and then I've had people come up to the front of the stage and wiggle my glasses and stuff, and I don't like that. So I don't. My eyesight isn't actually that bad. I only really have proper prescription in one eye. So if I take my glasses off, I can actually see pretty good. And plus, when a lot of bands started getting LED lighting, which is what we have in this band and other bands I've been in, LEDs are incredibly efficient and incredibly bright. And what I found is that when you have LED lightings going on, often you can't really see much of the audience anyway. So I decided to take the glasses off. And then it does have the kind of Batman with his cowl and Superman with his glasses type thing. So when I take the glasses off, I become a different character, maybe.
That's how Tim becomes the musician. I don't know. It's just very funny to me because I've watched you many videos, you post. I've watched his YouTube channel. On Monday, he was on Freak Jam and they posted some videos and everybody was going on about the stage. By the way, everybody's like, that's a huge stage, but the audience could fit into it 5 times in a very small audience. But anyway, all right. So, is it your song, Tim? It's your song, right?
Yeah, I need to choose. Is it you going to choose me one, or I'm going to choose you one? I can't. I've lost count.
What song were we talking about? I feel like I gave you a song because it's Hall & Oates. Yes.
There you go. All right. So it's my turn to pick you a song. All right.
Okay.
So this is from 1980, which is the beginning of the golden decade, and this is Diana Ross's "Upside Down."
Okay. Tim picked this one specific because he knows I'm a Diana Ross fan. So true story, y'all. Your homegirl used to be on Twitch Sings, which is a thing where you put all your videos and all this stuff. I got banned. Hear me out. I am not Diana Ross. I am not claiming I'm Diana Ross, and I will never be Diana Ross. But I got banned because I posted a video of me singing Upside Down and it was too close to the original and they banned me because they thought it was copyright.
Well, would you look at that?
True story. I don't know what to think about that because I'm not Diana Ross, but homegirl may have some characteristics. I don't know what to think about that, but yeah, I got that song was taken down. I got banned. I got a shadow ban for a week and couldn't go on because they basically thought I actually copyrighted the song and put it on.
Would you look at that? Look at you. You're Christiansburg's answer to Diana Ross on the internet.
I don't know what to think about that. Diana, I'm sorry.
So explain this to me. So I know what Twitch is because it's a way that people broadcast video games.
So there was a video game that was called Twitch Sings. And what they did was it was a karaoke style video game. And you had to go in and you sang all these songs and you reached different levels and then you were up here, right? And the higher you got, the more people watch. So I was like me, who I am. And, I very actively said I'm a hardcore singer. I love singing. Singing's my thing. I've been doing it for years. I don't actually, you know what, Tim? I'm going to say something controversial in this podcast right now. I hate the fact that if you're a good guitar player, you're allowed to say you're a good guitar player, but if you're a good singer, you're not allowed to say it. said what I said. Anyway, so what I was getting at is I used to do these. I used to broadcast this karaoke game on Twitch. And you would get views based on that, and you'd go up in the ranks. I got it pretty high. I was doing like a video every night, whatever. I did one that was upside down, and I posted it. And when I posted it, I saved it and put it on like Twitch as a general, like everybody could see it. I was really proud of it. Thought it was really good. I was really happy with it. Well, a week later, I got a message from Twitch saying you've been banned because you copyrighted. Mind you, this is Twitch's game that they put out that, there was a version upside down you could see. It said that they thought that it was the original Diana Ross version based off of my singing. And that blew my mind. And I got banned for a week and couldn't post anything.
There you go. And whatever happened to Twitch things? Did it go away?
It evaporated. Not enough people got into it. Funny story, though. One time, so this is for everybody who's ever done a Zoom chat from home or whatever. I was in here, and I don't know what I was singing. And there were like 3 people watching me live or whatever, and I was getting it. I thought I was the hottest thing ever. So Charlie, my husband, he walked in the room not knowing what I was doing. And you just see him going, and his shirt was off and everything. And he just like slowly backs out of the camera like, hey. I went to that Zoom chat and I just busted laughing. There was nothing to do because it was like that classic, you know what I'm talking about, Tim, when everybody like, oh no. Then he didn't even react. He like 1 foot in the air and he just started backing up slowly. I still remember that. I'm very sad Twitch things never became anything. It was a really fun program and they had all kinds of songs. And for people who really enjoy singing, it was really fun. But yeah, the moral of the story is I once got banned because I thought Diana Ross was singing upside down and it was just me.
There we go.
I don't think that Diana has any competition with me, but girl, we'll vocal duel it out tomorrow if you want to. I'll lose. All right, Tim, you want me to give you one more song?
Yeah, I think what we'll do one more song for me, and then I'll do one more song for you, and then we will wrap up this program.
All right, let me think about this because I got a few choices. My song is Only the Good Die Young, Billy Joel.
Okay, so it's funny, like Billy Joel, classic artist, one of his great songs. I've heard that song 100 times. I've got it on various albums, live albums. But when you said Only the Good Die Young, my brain didn't go to Billy Joel, even though that was the song that you had picked out. Yeah, I went to the Queen song called Only the Good Die Young. And that is a very unique Queen song because
it is.
It has Brian May in it, Roger Taylor, and John Deacon, but it doesn't have Freddie Mercury. It was the only song that was recorded by Queen without Freddie Mercury being involved.
I've heard that before, yeah.
Yeah, and the only reason that John Deacon agreed to it, because John Deacon, towards the end of Queen in the 80s, really wanted to be done with it. He'd had enough. In the Magic Tour, their final tour, he actually tried to walk off the tour because he was done. And they had to send someone to the airport to go and get him because he just wanted to go back to his family. He wanted to go and have a normal life. He didn't want to be a rock and roll star. So, and the last show that he played at Nebworth, and that was pretty much it. And then they did the tribute concert, and he wanted to do that because he was honoring his friend. And then after that, he sold all his gear and he said, peace, I'm out. And he said, you do what you want, call it what you like, I'm done.
Makes sense.
However, Only the Good Die Young, they asked him to do it, and he didn't want to do it because he said, I'm done. However, outside his house where he lives, I think he lives in Putney in London, outside his house, roadworks were going on, and it was very noisy. And he remembered that, Tuesday or whatever it was the Queen recording date they asked him to do. And the only reason he went to the studio that day is because the roadworks outside his house were really noisy and annoying. And he decided, I'll just hang out with the guys. I mean, there's a lot of noise here. It's annoying me. And that's the only reason he did it.
Well, and the rest is history.
Yeah. And it's a good song. I mean, it's no, great. It's not an iconic Queen song, but it's still a good song.
I like the song. I just, I'm a big Billy Joel fan, so that's where my mind goes when I hear Only the Good Die Young. But, I mean, That's kind of a crazy story, though. And to think about, I always wonder about those situations where just if one thing would have changed, all of it would have changed. Like, you know what I mean? Like, one thing could have changed that would have changed the course of history forever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Crazy. All right, Tim, what's your song for me?
Okay, so we're going to close out with one last song for Joy. Now, this may be a obvious song choice, but I was just curious where Joy's mind was going to go when I mentioned this one. And this is from Michael Jackson, and this is, of course, Thriller.
Well, instantly what I think of is there's a story to this. I think of Thriller dance. And the reason I think of Thriller dance, I think of the Thriller video and I think of the dance because it's iconic. And I just distinctly remember this in my childhood. And this is not to discredit anyone because when we're teenagers, we do stupid stuff, Tim. And our minds are dumb. But I remember, I've talked about this. I was in a show choir. We would have, I was in musicals for hours. So we would do like our musical and the last final night after, 6 weeks of all this craziness, right? All these shows and stuff like that. And Tim, I know you've been in bands, you understand once you get to the end, sometimes it can be a little stressful. So after our final, we'd have our after cast party, right? And this is a high school after cast party. So there wasn't like anything crazy going on. But I remember, we've got a lot of people who are musicians and people who are in choir and people who play guitars and sing and dance. You got musicians. And they were playing like Soldier Boy or the Cupid Shuffle or something like that, right? Just these distinctly early 2000s kind of line dances. Well, Thriller came on. And there was this one girl, her name is Faith. Bless Faith's heart. She knew what she was doing. She killed Thriller. And I remember these very pretentious high school cheerleaders judging her for knowing Thriller as bad as she did. I distinctly remembered it in my brain that she knew Thriller and no one else in that room knew Thriller as well as she did. And wherever you were at, Faith, right now, girl, I'm with you, soul sister. And when I think about that, I think about the fact that they thought they were super cool because like we had did Soldier Boy and the Cupid Shuffle or whatever. And there was one girl in the room who knew Thriller. And I mean, I knew Thriller, but this girl knew Thriller. And they judged her or were so mean to her. And to this day, I don't know where Faith is. I don't know what she's doing. Girl killed it. Killed it.
Well, I would like to dedicate this podcast to Faith wherever you are. This one is for you. Because,
I mean, Thriller.
Exactly.
Like, who doesn't love Thriller? And it was so funny because I was so at that moment in my life that I was just like rolling my eyes at things. I thought it was ridiculous. But I also didn't know Thriller as much as Faith. So I also didn't want to look like a dummy beside her because she's way better than I was. But it just goes to show you people don't know good music sometimes.
Exactly.
All right, Faith, if you're listening, this one's for you.
See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.